like this angle. I am excited to introduce some of my Hoyas. There's been a lot of talk, some of my comments that people love Hoyas. I also love Hoyas. I think that they do need a lot more light than like a pothos or philodendron, but they are a lot more resilient. So like given more light, they can do less water, more light. You can kind of get like a good stress, like a sun stress on them. I have quite a few. I was going to repot this one, but I actually am not going to repot this one. This is Hoya Chelsea, and this is probably like my most full pot of Hoya. I don't know. Sometimes they just don't do well, and I don't know. I think it's a pot size thing, and that's why I'm kind of repotting a lot. I used to take all my Hoyas outside, put them under the awning in the summertime, but I think every time I do that, something gets on them, and I think kind of like eats at them. You can see on this one, like all these little, I think a pest gets on it, and then I have to do pest control, and then the plant's not growing. It's just a whole thing. So I kind of want to put them into terracotta pots. I have a stack here so that I can control the water, the moisture level. And my goal is to start getting them to bloom, because if you know Hoyas, you know that they have the most beautiful waxy looking blooms, and that's where you'll hear the term wax plant, I think. But the blooms have like a really nice aroma. I love a good aromatic bloom. Like when I walk by, there's a couple of my Hoyas that bloom regularly. One of them is not fragrant. The other one is, and I'll walk by and I'll smell it in the air and I'll look and it's blooming. So that's another fun thing about a Hoya. I think I'm going to keep this one in this pot. Heard you can use orchid spray that you would spray on orchids on Hoyas, and they absorb the fertilizer through their leaves. So I'm going to try that and try to get them to bloom that way. I've also read that if you neglect them a lot, they'll shoot out a bloom or a peduncle or whatever the heck they're called. But I don't want to stress them too much and then they succumb. So I think I'm going to go with the fertilizer route and then kind of hold back on water here and there and see what we get. And maybe by the end of the summer, I can have some Hoya blooms. I think I'm going to start with this one. And you'll see the same kind of Costa Farms pot. Listen, I like me a Costa Farms plant. One, when they come on these hanging baskets, they have the best hangers. Do not throw away your Costa Farm hangers. And two, they're so affordable. Like $20 for this big boy. Hoyas typically cost a little bit more for a smaller plant. Like you can get a decent size philodendron or pothos for the same cost as a smaller Hoya if you go to most places. So when you get a pot this full for $20, it's kind of a no-brainer. There's a lot of controversy with that, but it's what I do. I do think Hoyas are known to have a shallow root system, and that's where I think I'm gonna try to pot into smaller pots. So like this root system, there are roots down here, but it's been in this pot for quite some time and it's really not doing a lot. So I think a smaller pot would be a good option. There's also some kind of dead stuff going on in here and I just want to remove them. Kind of was a full pot in this, I'm gonna say 8-inch pot. It will look even fuller in a 4-inch pot. And like the terracotta will keep it from being too moist, which Hoyas do not like to be too wet. This is what I have. This is the root ball, and I think it'll be a perfect fit. Throw a little soil in there, and then I'm gonna pop this in. It fits perfect. Just backfill the soil is all I'm doing here. That looks so much better. With Hoyas, they will put out these runners here, and you might be tempted to cut this off, but they will put leaves out eventually. Whereas with a pothos, it puts out long runners like that, and then you might have a couple leaves on the end, and then like a naked runner. That means it's not getting enough light. Hoyas do that, and then they put their leaves out. And I think that's completely normal for them. Not necessarily lack of light. Pretty sure this is an 8-inch terracotta. And I don't think I'm going to fill it all the way. I'm going to put some soil in the bottom. Put some soil around the root ball. But it's going to be kind of sticking out the top. Because I think if I put too much soil around it, it's not going to do... It might stay wet for too long. But being in the terracotta, it probably won't. Whereas if I filled this all the way up with soil, it could stay wet for too long. That could lead to root rot. I just want to tell you what not to do in case you come across that. And you might know how to fix it then. If you know that your pot is too big and the soil is staying too wet, that's probably the cause, is the pot's too big. If the soil is staying too wet for too long, which leads to your plant being unhappy because there's too much water. I hope that makes sense. It looks amazing. Another thing I like to do with Hoyas, a bamboo arch in it, and I think I will do it with this one. And then you can wrap the trindles around, and it'll push out leaves a little bit quicker. And then like just keep wrapping it around, and it kind of makes it look like vertical growth. It just makes it look a lot bigger. I really like the way Hoyas look on arches. The thing with Hoyas is there are a lot of them, and a lot of them look very similar. And I think sometimes the only way to differentiate them is from their bloom color. And if they're not blooming, you don't know exactly what they are. So much better. So much better. That looks good. I'm really happy with that. Do be careful when you're working with Hoyas. They do secrete like a sappy white. You could have like a reaction to it. So if you have very sensitive skin, you might want to wear gloves. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I'm glad I'm finally getting around to it, but I should have done it a lot sooner. So good. I'm loving it. That's about it. I'll see you soon.